I'll just have to hold it. Okay. So we're going to listen to some more ideas, Buddha's views, Buddha's observations, Buddha's findings about reality, about the mind, which we are attempting ourselves to take into our mind and use as our interpretation of the world. Why? So we can accomplish what Buddha says we can, which is our happiness. And even why this? So we can help others. This is the point. This is what Buddha has found to be so. This is what being a Buddhist means, you know. So we're here for this reason, so we can become a Buddha like him, following his steps, so we can be of benefit to sentient beings. Okay.
Voy por refugio hasta alcanzar la iluminación, al Buda, al Dharma y a la Asamblea Suprema. Por los méritos que acumule practicando la generosidad y demás perfecciones, que pueda obtener el estado de Buda para beneficiar a todos los seres. Voy por refugio hasta alcanzar la iluminación, al Buda, al Dharma y a la Asamblea Suprema. Por los méritos que acumule practicando la generosidad y demás perfecciones, que pueda obtener el estado de Buda para beneficiar a todos los seres. Voy por refugio hasta alcanzar la iluminación, al Buda, al Dharma y a la Asamblea Suprema. Por los méritos que acumule practicando la generosidad y demás perfecciones, que pueda obtener el estado de Buda para beneficiar a todos los seres. Esta tierra ungida con perfume y regada de flores, con el monte Meru, los 4 continentes, el sol y la luna, vista como una tierra pura de Budas, yo te ofrezco, que todos los seres puedan gozar de una tierra así. Oh sagrado y venerable Lama, desde las nubes de compasión que se forman en los cielos de tu sabiduría dharmakāyika, por favor, derrama una lluvia de Dharma vasto y profundo, de acuerdo precisamente con las necesidades de los que serán adiestrados. Idam Guru Rana Mandala Kanil Yatayami.
That's better. Okay. So I've just been thinking since we talked last night about all the vows and commitments and then looking at our own minds and seeing how we get so guilty so easily. We have all these... Huh? What problem? He can't hear me. So, okay. One of the things that I find the most common for all the years, including with myself and everybody else I talk to, because we have ego grasping, because we have this strong clinging to this sense of self, whose function is actually fear, anxiety, worry, self-pity, guilt. These are the very function of ego. It's kind of ironic. When we think of ego, we think of big and arrogant, you know. No. Self-pity, guilt, they're all functions of ego. They're all symptoms of ego. They're all the job of the ego. So because we all have this, which is what being in samsara means, then of course, and here we are trying to be good Buddhists, and here we are trying to practice morality, and then we take refuge, and then we take lay vows, and we take initiations and bodhisattva vows, and then we have all these commitments, and we have this practice we do every day, and then we hear about the stories of devotion, and we have all these high expectations of ourselves. And then all we do is we keep plodding along, and then we feel miserable, and then we feel guilty because we don't do it properly, and then obstacles come, and then we don't want to do our practice, and then the guilt comes, and we get worse and worse and more miserable, you know. The number of people who come to me who are, you know, who've given up their practice because they don't see progress, and they don't know what they're doing, and they feel they are so bad. This is so typical. It's so typical, and we really have to have some kind of way of understanding, you know. The nature of ego is misery. We've got to understand this. And then when we become Buddhists, we have all these high expectations, you know. We have all these amazing examples in front of us of these lamas, His Holiness, Lama Zopa, Yangtze Rinpoche, all the holy gurus. And we look to them and we admire them and we aspire to become like them and we try to we try to be like them. And then all we do is we fall short. And then we become miserable. Then we get guilty. Then we get depressed. Then we get upset. Then we get angry with ourselves. And it's just double trouble, you know. So, but one of the things that what I'm getting at is what we have to understand is that a sign of progress is that you think you're getting worse. They say even in the single-pointed concentration technique, the very first of the 9 stages of development, one of the signs of success at the first stage is you think your thoughts are increasing. The conceptual thoughts, the crazy thoughts are getting worse. They're not. You're just noticing them. This is one of the most important things, you know. So if, for example, you're overweight and your muscles don't work and you decide you're going to go to the gym to get healthy, you have the vision of how you will look. You know, you're going towards that vision. And then you go to the gym and you come home the first night. Excuse me, you feel worse. There's no question you feel worse. You're feeling pain, you're feeling muscles you didn't know you had before. Now we know that. We know that's true. But we all also know it's a good sign, don't we? If you were feeling that pain while you're sitting just watching television, then you'd be in big trouble. You get my point? But you're feeling that pain because you're stretching yourself. You've made an effort, and that's why it's a good sign. And I can't stress this enough. We're all the same, you know. I mean, for years I was really good at doing my practice. I'd be up early in the morning, 2 hours, and my 200 prostrations. I was such a good girl, you know. And then after a while, it just changed. And for years, it was an incredible struggle to do my practice. I couldn't stand to sit on my seat. To see the seat, I didn't want to go there, you know. I mean, you understand, everybody has the same experience. So this is where we've got to be really, try to be intelligent about it. We've got to be very grown up. We're big girls now, okay? We're not 5. We've got to really have an intelligent way to interpret all this and be reasonable with ourselves. So first of all, we have to understand that because we are, okay, get some perspective. If we look at the world, you know, they talk about the 1% or the rich people. Well, we are part of the 1%, not the rich people, the good people. And I'm not trying to make us feel arrogant, but here we are actually committing ourselves to be a better person. We've taken vows, many of us. We've committed to never harm, never lie, never steal, never even kill a little flea, which no one in the world even cares about. Who cares about fleas? I mean, where's the fleas liberation, you know? No one, fleas and mosquitoes, they can all die in the billions, and you're considered a good person. And here we are trying to not harm a flea. I mean, you should be weeping in happiness at what an incredible person you are. We really should be seeing the good things, but we don't, because the irony of ego is we are addicted to seeing the bad things. And the first person we're going to see bad about is ourselves. This is just the way we are. It's the way delusions work. So we've got to be intelligent about it. We've got to step back and get some reasonable perspective. I mean, Lama Zopa said, on this earth, just to even have a kind thought is so special. And look at us. We've actually committed our lives to try to have kind thoughts and be better people and not kill and not lie and not steal and not harm. It's actually unbelievable. We should be completely in tears of happiness. And I'm really serious. So that is a fact. This is a fact. But we don't like to say it to ourselves. It's so ironic. Ego is so ironic because you'd think ego would be happy to point out good things about yourself. But we're not. We're addicted to the bad. We almost think it's virtuous to think bad things about ourselves. Our mind just runs to thinking bad things about ourselves. This is the way ego works. So we really have to be very courageous in being reasonable, stepping back and getting a reasonable assessment of the facts. Okay? And then what they call it is rejoicing. It sounds such a holy word. Oh, we should rejoice. I mean, it just sounds so boring. But it is unbelievably important we need to do this. That means instead of craving other people to praise us, we have to start praising ourselves. It's not arrogance. It's seeing the facts and saying, well done. I'm doing a good job. I'm trying to keep my vows. I'm trying to do this. I'm doing a pretty good job. And it's a fact. But we have to say it. We have to learn to say it, not just run to the bad thoughts, addicted to hearing the bad thoughts, and then believing in the bad thoughts, you know. And the fact is, delusions are coming strong. This is no question. So the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems, is the wrong expectation that we should be better than we are. Actually, we are better than we think, but we even think we should be better than that because we're addicted to being dissatisfied. So we have to realize that seeing the delusions, having the obstacles, not wanting to do the practice, feeling resentful about it, getting more angry, feeling more depressed, getting more jealousy, having more problems, getting sickness, they are good signs. And I'm not joking. But we have to be intelligent, like going to the gym. You don't freak out and go to the doctor because you're feeling pain after going to the gym. You know it's inevitable. You know it's an indication of success. It's a fact. We get this one. We get this one. So the example for me, you know, Venerable Roger, Venerable Sumten, he's been here, right? Well, he's meditating. He's a professional meditator, has been for 30 years. I remember 15 years ago, he's telling me that after some of the, 3-year retreats, 4-year retreats, he was out of his brain with extra levels of rage and delusions and arrogance that he was freaked out about it. You'd think after serious retreats in the mountains, incredible delusions, and he was really distressed. And he went to see Rinpoche, and Rinpoche laughed and laughed. And he said, fantastic, fantastic, the dirt has to come out. The dirt has to come out. And I swear to you, that was so profound for me to hear it, And we need to be reasonable. Lama Yeshe would say this, we've got to be reasonable with ourselves. Because when the guilt comes, we just run to it like a magnet. We drown in our guilt and shame and feeling bad, We are addicted to it. We can't stop thinking those thoughts. So one of the biggest skills is to, it's like you've been to the gym, your body is aching all over, but you go to work and someone says, how are you today? The child would go, oh, I'm so full of aches, and you'd moan and complain all day, right? That's a typical human thing to do. But the adult thing to do would be say, I'm really well, how are you? And keep your pain to yourself. That's the grown-up, okay? Well, that's how we should be with our junk in our heads. Our heads, if we're really beginning to practice and get some reasonableness, which means having the courage to welcome the junk in our head. And I'm not joking here. Like you accept the pain. You even just to accept the junk in your head. Like you accept the pain because you know it's a good thing. But we so are used to vomiting everything out our mouth. We're not used to keeping it inside in a respectful way. We either suppress and don't even know we think something, or we blur out the mouth, Well, like I keep saying, we've got to grow up and be adult about it. And an adult is wise and more reasonable and observes the problems and sees the obstacles and hears the jealousy and looks at the depression, but you keep activating the better part of yourself, the virtue. The wise part of you interprets this. Okay, Robina, this is a sign of success. Rinpoche said, the dirt's coming out. Aren't I pleased about this? The other part of you is not feeling so pleased, but the wise part of you is feeling pleased. And so you act according to the wise part. And you just keep moving, and you do your practice. You do your practice. If you have a connection with your Lama, don't ever cut that. This is the key to success. Even when the delusions are rampant, the natural thing is to want to hide it and have guilt and push the Lama away. If we do have devotion in our Lama, let's say, keep your Lama in the middle of your heart and offer him the junk. There's this wonderful mandala offering that Lama Yeshe from the very beginning would always get us to do after the first one. You guys, I don't think you do it here. It's called the inner mandala. It's from Vajrayogini. And it says you offer all your delusions and the objects of your delusions, all the enemies and all the objects of your delusions. You give it all to the Lama. It's a lovely little prayer to do, And this is really true. The guilt wants to hide. And guilt is just the reverse of arrogance, that wants to show. Arrogance wants to show everything. Guilt wants to hide everything. They're both symptoms of the same problem, the neurotic eye. So we have to be reasonable. Observe the problems, see our mind, wisdom, step back and observe. Okay, I'm having problems. You know, I've got difficulties. I don't want to do my practice. My anger's going out berserk. I can't stand my boss. I hate my husband. Things are all going wrong. I'm getting sick. But it's cool, Robina. These are good signs of practice. So meanwhile, I keep going through the motions of doing my practice. But don't have to be holy. You know, you do it sitting in the kitchen. You do it in the car. You do it walking down through the garden. You go for a walk and you do your practice. There's no commitment to be holy. There's no commitment to have single point of concentration. The commitment is maybe if you do your 6-session guru yoga. You know, well, there's a 4-line version. The Courtin Centro, I think, is written. 4 lines. You keep your commitment by doing the 4 lines. There's no commitment to do it for 4 hours. You can be very nice, but don't feel guilty because you can't. The thing is to keep the bare bones, keep your contract with your Lama. Whatever you committed to do, 3 mantras, 7 this, 1 that, do it. Not more, not less, and offer to your Lama, and then be miserable. Then be miserable, okay? Cry, be miserable, but at least keep your practice, because that's the thread that you don't want to break, that keeps you moving, that keeps you going through the hard times and keeps you then going towards the good times. We've got to just be reasonable, you know? Are we communicating here? Yes. Good. And then we will be so courageous. Then we will feel courageous because we will feel glad that we are keeping our word of honor, that we are moving along, never giving up. You pick yourself up and you just keep moving. You just keep moving. You just keep moving. Pick yourself up and just keep moving, never giving up. There's no choice, you know. I mean, I always think my mind will last forever. So what choice do I have? Do you understand my point? My mind will last forever. So my feeling is, my policy is, even if I'm drowning, I might as well stay happy. You understand my point? We've just got to decide. We don't have, you know, I know you're understanding what I'm saying. We've got to be brave about it. You know, we've got to be brave. Just got to be courageous, brave, intelligent, wise, reasonable. Be reasonable with ourselves. Delusions are completely not reasonable, you know. But wisdom is reasonable. And then it's going to be a struggle. And then other days things will be easy. That's fine. Some days it's sort of like you're walking on your road, and your road is your life. And you're going to get many obstacles on that road. You're going to get big potholes. At some point the road will look really ugly, but it's still your road, baby. You've got to keep walking past the potholes, over the barriers, around the rocks, and just keep walking. Get up every day. Do your motivation, say the prayers. Don't expect good feelings. Even if you're bored by it, it doesn't matter. Sow the seeds, because remember, every thought is a seed. Remember your long-term goal, and just keep moving, and just keep moving, and just keep moving. And this itself gives courage, you know. Okay? And be happy that the dirt is coming out. Better out than in. You know? And then, of course, as we study more, we'll understand logically what it's all about. We'll be able to label the delusions in a much more accurate way. And, of course, the main one is attachment, because attachment wants everything to be nice. And half the time when we do our practice well and are feeling good about our practice, it's only because attachment's getting what it wants, you know. It's still just attachment. So when we make effort, and you only make effort when something's difficult, when you make effort, that's when you bring success. That's when some changes come. You know, it's sort of when you're going downhill, there's no effort. When you've got to walk uphill, that's effort. Well, that's when you make progress. And that's, as Lama Zopa says, you don't really create any merit until you make effort. So be happy you've got to make effort, you know, and just keep moving. I swear to you. It's very important, because that's what makes you happy. That's what gives you comfort. That's what gives you courage. That's what inspires you. That's why I want to say that. Which brings me, actually, I think the 6 perfections. I think we could talk about the 6 perfections. I don't remember if we did. I'm sure we didn't. I don't remember. But let's talk about the 6 perfections. Because we've talked about most other bits of the path, so why not just put everything in, you know? And this is really the one I'm talking about here. This is in a way, we're talking about the 4th of the 6 perfections, which is the one called joyful effort. But we'll get to it. So the whole idea of the bodhisattva, as we know, you know, what we're trying to cultivate as a baby bodhisattva, as Lama Yeshe would put it, is we're trying to cultivate the attitude of that it's my responsibility to help sentient beings. It's my job. It's like when you're a mother, you know this and think that's a perfect analogy. A parent just knows it's their job if they're a good parent. They don't wait for next door neighbor to feed the baby, you know. But when they just, that attitude of incredible responsibility, that's what the bodhisattva's, what we're trying to cultivate as a bodhisattva. So that's a big attitude, you know. That's a big, brave attitude. It's my job. So with that in mind, then what we're looking at then is this next stage. Once we've begun to cultivate bodhicitta, after having done Tonglen, after having done equanimity, after having done the middle scope, after having done the junior school scope, moving forward. We now practice. We now perfect. We perfect ourselves and become a Buddha by perfecting these 6. And the first 4 are the perfection of the compassion wing, if you like. Call it this. It's all the work you're doing in relation to sentient beings. And the last 2 are where you're perfecting the wisdom wing. So the first 4, initially you think of these 4, they seem to me initially a bit arbitrary. You know, why generosity? Then morality, then patience, then perseverance. It doesn't seem they're really related almost. But there's something about the understanding of them. If we understand them a little bit, it helps. So the very first one, generosity or giving or charity, Lama Zopa likes to call it because that's the term we use in the West, you know, charity. As Lama Tsongkhapa in one of his wonderful little Lam Rim texts called The Songs of Experience, he says generosity is the wish-fulfilling jewel with which you can fulfill the hopes of all sentient beings. It's the basis of the activity of the bodhisattva in that it develops the selflessness and undaunted courage to lead all sentient beings to enlightenment. So what it is it's like the next level of practice, and it's opening the door, because they're taught in order of difficulty. It's opening the door to this one of being responsible for sentient beings. So generosity is the one of giving. So giving what? There are 3 levels of it. Giving, obviously, the first one is giving material things. The second is giving spiritual advice. And the third, oddly enough, is called giving protection. You know, giving protection. So the first one is meant to be the most easy, but I think for us, the second one's really easy. We all love to give spiritual advice, you know. As soon as we have an opportunity, out comes some advice. We love to do this one. That's cheap and easy for most of us. But the first one is not so easy, maybe. Generosity of things. So that gets us a bit confused sometimes, because first of all, most of us think we are poor, probably, relatively speaking. We are poor. We mightn't have much material things to give. But so the whole point here is what we're trying to do is first and foremost, obviously, is completely change our attitude, change the mind, change the thoughts, change the view. Because your hand, that is the one that gives, it doesn't have its own little brain in there. It only gives what the mind wants to give. So the first step is to change the attitude, to want to give, to have this attitude that when you see, and that's what a bodhisattva is trying to do, we're trying to act like when we get up in the morning, you're acting like you're a mother and everybody else is your babies, and you're looking around waiting to check what job you should do because you're seeing what they need. This is the attitude. Like if you're a kindergarten teacher or you're at the babies club where you take care of the babies at the creches or whatever they call it, you know for sure you've got to be watching every single one every minute. It's your job. That's how bodhisattvas think. So, of course, we're trying to cultivate this. It's hard work, you know. And, of course, we're going way beyond just our own babies, our own children, our mummy, our daddy, our husband. We're looking at all sentient beings. This is the whole attitude of the bodhisattva that we're trying to cultivate, which is why it's such a huge thing. Such a huge job we're taking on, so we take it one step at a time. So this first one is to see the needs of sentient beings in terms of their need for material things. Well, you know, the way the world is now, you know, because we have money is the symbol, isn't it, of having. Money is the symbol of having. And therefore, everything can be translated into giving money. Because in the end, you give money and then people can buy what they need. That's just the way the world is. You know, if someone needs a dog, you don't have to go buy them a dog. You give them the money and they can buy their dog. You don't have to give them the food. You give them the money, they'll buy their food. This is fine. So money for us is the most powerful thing that we need to cultivate the wish to give. And of course, we don't like to give. We don't like to give, you know. We feel nervous because we don't think we have enough. And obviously, if we give $5, we immediately think, I've got $5 less, and it doesn't make us happy. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make us, it's not pleasant. So we really have to change our attitude. So this is why, again, we have to understand even the most basic teachings about karma. They say, you know, that the main cause karmically of getting a human body, at the time of death, the karma ripening, that's a virtuous karma that throws your consciousness to a human mummy. And if we understood how hard this one is to get, it would blow our minds. I will never forget reading, you know, in one book called The Tibetan Art of Parenting. It's like a baby book, a cute little baby on the front in a yak blanket, looking all just like a baby book, you know. But it's a very interesting book because it interviews with Tibetans and how they prepare for having babies, you know. And one of the lamas was quoted in this book. This blew my mind, this. He said, at the time of a male and female human being, two humans having sex, billions of consciousnesses that have recently passed away, obviously not just from the human realm. We don't have billions who are passing away, right? We'd have none left if the billions passed away. So at the moment that a male and female are having sex, and let's face it, on this earth, everyone's having sex at some point all the time, at the point there are billions of consciousnesses that have recently passed away, all kind of hovering around trying to get in. It's kind of intense, isn't it? Get my point? Well, we got in. It's like we won the lottery. It's like we won the most phenomenal lottery. Billions were all trying to get in your mummy's womb, and you got in. So, I mean, that would tell us it must have been an awful lot of merit to get in. Just an ordinary creepy old human womb, a lousy old human womb. We got a good one with opportunity and conditions and all this. So the point is, just to get the human womb is so unbelievably outrageous. The amount of merit, virtuous karma, the seemingly miraculous coming together of conditions just to get a human birth. The amount of morality karma for this is already incredible. But that's not enough, is what I'm getting to. The other thing we absolutely have to have an accumulation of is generosity. Morality gets you the human body. Generosity gets you a life in which you can even have access to 1 grain of rice. Forget about the things that we have got. So we have to have had masses of generosity karma to be born into our present mummy's womb in a reasonable place with a reasonable amount of money, not homeless, with a reasonable amount of job, having credit. Look at that. We take all these things so much for granted, you know. The fact that we can get credit. Most homeless people don't have as much debt as we do because they can't get credit. They don't have generosity karma. So we've had to have had enormous generosity karma. So if we think that to be who we are now has come from masses of generosity karma, then we'd be very scared not to practice more generosity. And this, of course, is the trouble. I mean, this, you know, one of the karmic results of stealing is that no matter in next life, is no matter how hard you work, how hard you try, you never have enough. You can never make ends meet. You never seem to get enough money. You always seem to have debt. You lose your job. And you can see people like this. I know people like this, you know. No matter how hard they work. So, of course, if you've got that kind of life, which is because of past stealing and lack of generosity, it's very scary to think you should be giving more money when you really feel, because the mind also is very greedy and fearful there. It's really hard to break that cycle. So the thing of generosity is incredibly important just for our own sake. Forget about the brave attitude of the bodhisattva who really believe it's their job. As they all say about the bodhisattvas, when they give, they feel the same way that we feel when we receive. They're like the opposite to us, you know. When good things happen, when bad things happen, they feel happy. When good things happen, they get nervous because they're using up their merit, you know. They've got a completely opposite view. So, I mean, we've got to cultivate this view. And we just, you know, start small, start reasonable. But please, start with the mind. So one really great practice, and this is my own creation. I'm going to put this in the lamb rim. This is my practice. I invented this one. And you'll see it's a brilliant practice. I'm just joking, but I'm not joking. You listen. You listen to it. It's brilliant. Okay. So in old-fashioned days, when you received money, you'd get an envelope in the mail, and you'd open it, and there'd be a check, right? And then when you receive bills, you get an envelope, and you open up, and there's a bill, yeah? Now, everybody in this room, when you open the check, you go, oh, great, look, $5. Even $5, you get excited, right? Yes? Is it true? And now look, hey, when you open the bill, how do you feel? Now, nobody ever would question that response, would they? Everybody would say, oh, that's normal. You'd be considered completely weird to get excited. Oh, wow, I'm so happy I got a bill. Oh, I can't wait to pay it. Quick, where's my checkbook? Do you understand? Yes. That's the attitude, okay? Start with that. Because the fact is, you've got to pay your bill anyway. So why be miserable? It's completely ridiculous. You've got to pay it no matter what. So please, you might as well have a happy mind. I mean, this is incredible. I'm not asking you to give another penny without having, this is just what you have to pay. It's an amazing practice, I tell you. It's miraculous. You've got to admit it's a good practice. Yeah? Okay, try it out. And I really mean it, because every month you have your bills. And every month we hate paying them. Even though, there's so many logical reasons why you should be so happy. You get the phone, you get the cable, you get the house, the mortgage, the this, the that. You have, everything is debt these days, everything. And all these little people out there working away to make sure you get your money and make sure you get charged that right amount of interest. It's all these people out there. There's every reason we should want to pay it. But if we understand karma, we would be scared not to have a positive attitude towards giving. Because every time you don't want to give, you are closing the door to receiving. Because your mind is the one that has to be generous. The mind is the one that's miserly. The giving of the money of the debt resentfully, you're not practicing generosity. But if you give it with a happy mind, you're practicing generosity when you pay your debt. I'm really serious. It's such a skillful attitude, Start with this. It's amazing. Because it loosens your heart. It loosens you. And actually what you're trying to cultivate is this genuine wish to give to sentient beings. Well, start with the debts you're supposed to pay, Then eventually you'll even be able to give people with a happy mind. So, of course, we do give these days, but mostly we only give to our friends. And then, you buy a new coat and you give your old coat away. Why not give your new coat away? Oh, yeah, you have this, I mean, a friend of mine recently, she was telling me, she was at the course in Canada, and she's got a couple of kids who are considered a bit backward in their minds. And she'd be freaking out about them and how to teach them wisdom. And she said she bought this beautiful something or other, I forget now, she bought something beautiful for her son. I mean, he's a musician. She bought him like an electric piano. And then a friend of his was at the party, and the friend rejoiced for this boy in his beautiful piano and said, oh, it'd be wonderful to have something like that. And the boy spontaneously gave him his brand new piano. And the mother was devastated. She went to her room and cried. She felt so hurt, she said. And then she heard the different teachings about bodhisattvas. She said she completely got a revelation. This incredible child, even though he mightn't be so intelligent, this huge good heart, out of true, genuine wish to give, gave his brand new, beautiful piano away, I mean, that's amazing. Giving is a very special quality. And I'm not talking about giving because you get praise, which is why we give mostly now. When you give a gift, you can't wait to see the person say thank you to you. If they don't say thank you, you're going to be so upset. Or if they give your gift away. That would be too shocking, right? Like that mother. But if you give, these lamas, Lama Zopa is especially famous for his generosity. So you walk in, you walk in the room to give Rinpoche a statue, and the next person comes in, and guess what? They come out with your statue. That was my statue. Everything just gets recycled through Rinpoche, in one hand and out the other. So he never actually ever gets anything, but he gets everything he gets is just he gets houses. People give him houses. They're full of statues and gifts. They come pouring in. So he's got to keep up giving, to keep it moving. He's famous for his giving, and even he'd be giving. Roger said one time. He was just before he had to go to the airport in London, I think. He came out of his room. He'd just given his robes away to one monk. And he had his underskirt on to go to the airport. Roger had to run around and get the monk and get his robes back so he could get dressed to take the aeroplane, you know. Or he gives his shoes away, things like this. So giving is the attitude of wanting to give. And that's, you can see it's a huge attitude. Not just to give to your loved ones. Not just to give to people you feel like. Not just to give if you get a tax break. Not just to give if it gives you a good reputation. But it's truly trying to cultivate. And of course what we're trying to do on the Bodhisattva path, the main way of saying what we're trying to do is break down these artificial barriers between self and other. Literally that. Literally that. That's what we're trying to do. And it gets more advanced as we go along, you know. So giving is the first one. And it's amazing. Sure, give advice. That's fantastic. But let's practice the giving that's not easy for us. And be reasonable about it. Don't have to be all emotional and sentimental and give everything and end up with nothing. Give what you can, you know. I mean, do people all beg here? People beg when you walk around the streets? Yeah. Okay. I mean, probably you're mostly cynical about beggars. You don't like giving to beggars, right? Well, they're cheating, they use drugs, they're criminals, yeah, all that kind of thing. Well, it could be, but it's a very interesting practice, you know. It's a very interesting practice to really just have the point is, of course there are going to be people everywhere. In India, I mean, it's huge businesses, you know. But the point is, it's not a question of checking up on what they're going to do with your money. It's just trying to have the attitude of deciding you will give, regardless of what they do with it. It's a great practice from our side. It's not a question of where the money goes. That's not the issue. That's not the discussion here. It's an attitude of wishing to give freely to someone who's in front of you. And the fact is they're in front of you. They're your karmic appearance, okay? They're not my beggar, they're your beggar. They've come to you. There's some karma there. So, give. It's a really good practice, you know. It's a really good practice. Do what you can. You don't have to give to everybody. Make a decision in advance. It's a very powerful attitude. You can give other ways if you like. Don't give to charities. It's a safe way to do it. But this is such an important one. The other practice, of course, is to, you know, be like the Mormons and budget in. Have a line item in your budget. Generosity. 10% of your earning, you know. Something like that's incredible. Whereas we tend to say, well, once I've paid my rent and I've paid my mobile and I've paid my cable, I've paid this and paid that and paid this and paid that. If there's anything left, I'll give. Well, guaranteed there won't be anything left. So you've got to budget it in advance. And I mean giving with complete freedom in the heart. It's just, even to hear about it, we can hear the meaning. We understand it. It's not comfortable. It's such a powerful practice. It's such an incredible practice, you know. Because it's opening the heart to sentient beings. It's the doorway into seeing you responsible for sentient beings. That's what it is. It's very powerful. And the next one is called morality. Well, I mean, the whole practice is morality, isn't it, from day one? But there's three levels of morality. There's three levels. Mainly, there's the two, actually. There's the first level of morality is the morality of not harming sentient beings, the morality of not doing negative actions, which means not harming sentient beings, or the morality of restraint, refraining from harming. Then you've got the morality in the Bodhisattva path, which here, the morality of benefiting sentient beings, the morality of practicing virtue. So there's benefiting sentient beings, practicing virtue, and refraining from non-virtue. This is all together, the entire path. It's what it is, you know. So here, it's like generosity, but a next level. You're seeing it's your job to help people. So there's like a whole list in the Lam Rim. You help the poor, you help the sick, you help the old, you help the fearful, you help this, you help that. The people who need help. And so we don't have to walk around. We don't have to be like Mother Teresa. If you want to be like Mother Teresa, how amazing. But, you know, the point of these practices is to keep our eyes open for people who need. Quietly, humbly, knowing it's your job. That's the attitude we're trying to cultivate, which is a big one. We know it's our job in our home. But when we go out in the street, we never think it's our job. This is the attitude. We're trying to carry that attitude of responsibility wherever we are. That's what we're trying to do as a bodhisattva. And, of course, we have to practice it. If you never think it, it won't ever happen. This is what bodhisattva means, an attitude of responsibility. It's my job. It's my job. Please hear it. That's the point. That's the point. Not just having a gooey feeling every now and again for sentient beings, but the attitude of the bodhisattva that we're trying to cultivate is that it's my responsibility. What can I do? That's the great compassion, the one that's unique to the bodhisattva. So we see who needs helping. And I'm sure in our daily life, we're always going to come across people who need help. Helping, you know, and of course, we have to stretch ourselves. Of course, we love to help our loved ones. We love to help our beloved because there's attachment involved. But here we're trying to go beyond that to whoever needs it. And if you don't keep your eyes open, you won't notice. Because usually we see through things through the filter of attachment, you know. Here we're trying to see things through the filter of what can I do to help sentient beings. It's, again, an amazing attitude. And my feeling is unless we budget some time in for it, it won't happen. Oh, I'll be able to help when I've done my job, when I've helped this, when I've done that, when I've had my sleep, when I do this, when I do that. No. We have to be brave, stretch ourselves, help others, you know. Not in a sort of exaggerated, sentimental way, which is just attachment talking. We've got to go beyond our usual limited sense of what we can do for others, you know. The next one's called patience, which seems an odd one to come next. Curious, you know. Why patience? It seems so strange. Well, patience is an amazingly powerful attitude. It's not at all what we think. We tend to think of patience as, you know, like passive aggression, gritting your teeth, waiting for that ugly thing to go away, cursing inside. That isn't passive. That isn't patience. That is passive aggression. That's just internalized anger. Patience is, unbelievably hard state of mind. And the more we understand attachment, the more we can understand aversion or anger, which is the opposite to patience, which is meaning, therefore, the more we'll understand patience. So it really takes time. And the understanding of attachment, I know for myself, being a person for whom anger was very easy. In my life, it was like my middle name. I couldn't conceive of not having anger. And of course, I'd praise myself for having the courage to say what I felt, you know, that kind of thing. And you can see there's a good side to it as well. Of course there is, not to anger, but to saying whatever. It's whatever. So the point is though, you know, it took me years to see how anger was the response to when attachment didn't get what it wanted. When we see this, that in other words, I didn't really see attachment until my anger began to calm down. Are you understanding my point? When anger's the one that's so prevalent, that's the one you notice. That's the one you notice. You don't notice that I want something to be the way I want it, which is why you get angry, because you don't get what you want. That's what anger is. That's what anger is, you know. So it took years of hard work, and I remember almost the first moment when I began to realize it wasn't my true nature. It took a long time, believe me. It was like a miracle. This one day, I remember something seemed to have cracked finally, and I realized it wasn't who I really am. All those years, I really felt it was my nature. You understand what I'm saying? Whatever our delusions are, that's how we are, you know? So we've got to be patient with it. Just keep moving with it. So patience is this really brave attitude. And this is why we have to see our minds. We've got to be noticing our thoughts every moment, wanting to notice them, not noticing them and then feeling guilty, what we see. But we've got to be glad to see our disgusting thoughts. This is the attitude, talking back at the beginning, this is the attitude we really need. Like glad about that pain when you go to the gym because you know it's a good sign. Or like glad when one of my sisters in Melbourne went to see the doctor, and she has very pale skin, and she has a tendency to get skin cancers. And so she's always checking, you know. So this one time she just went for some other reason, and they happened to find some little growth on her leg. And she said if she'd been a month later, she would have died. So she was shocked to find a melanoma, but look how happy she was. She found it in time. That's the kind of attitude we should have towards seeing our shitty minds. Excuse me, okay? And that's back to number one when we first began talking. We need to be glad to see the rubbish. That's the adult in us. The wisdom in us is seeing, oh my God, a whole new level of attachment. I can't believe myself, you know. But aren't I glad to see it? Because if you can't see it, how can you change it? This is the attitude to our bad side, you know. So anyway, the anger one, what patience is, and we really can get a handle on it, is actually greeting the problem. The first stage of practicing patience, that all the lamas, they'll tell you in the Lam Rim, you kind of, and I used to think this was just so ridiculous, I never even tried it. It was just like absurd, was to turn yourself into wood and say nothing. I thought, they're mad. What are they talking about, say nothing? I couldn't possibly do that. I just thought it was stupid. Just don't do anything. Like this, turn yourself to wood. But that's a very reasonable one. At least you don't say anything. But this next level of patience, and it's not for nothing, it's in the perfection of perfection of patience. There's 3 levels of patience. I'll talk about it in a second. But in general, it's when there is a problem, and guess what a problem is? It's what attachment doesn't want. And that's 1,000,000 times a day. You actually are glad, and you're glad that it's coming, and that's what patience is. And as we know from earlier in the practices where we're cultivating all the exchanging self for others and all that genre of practices that include transforming problems into happiness, it's another variation of patience, that's all, where you're actually changing the default mode, which is so instinctive, that bad things are bad, and of course you're unhappy, but we're trying to be glad about bad things. And it's a powerful practice. It's a powerful practice. That's what patience is. It's seeing it as good. That means, welcoming the problem, opening yourself to the problem, rather than resisting the problem, which is what anger does. Attachment's so frantic. Attachment is so desperate, and I mean every millisecond, like deep inside us, frantically trying, wanting to get only the nice things. It's a really good way to put what attachment is. It's a junkie for the nice things. It only wants things to be nice. In ourselves, in other people, in the world, around us, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, everything. It's a junkie for nice things. It can't stand the bad things. So patience is learning to greet the bad things. That's what patience is. So it's a very courageous mind. It's very courageous. Very brave, I tell you. It's huge, massive. And why is it, not for nothing, is it the third of these fourth ones so difficult? Why? Because in the job of becoming a Buddha, this is the most powerful way to rip out attachment and ego. So the 3 levels of patience, the first one is patience, and listen to this, it sounds so shocking, patience in the face of abuse. They're not wishy-washy about it, Not like just bad words, abuse, okay? When people are mean to you, someone says unkind words, someone, blasts their horn at you at the road and curses you. So your husband's unkind, the kid is rude to you, your boss is mean. I mean, every day we get something. People are mean to us all the time. Greeting this with a happy mind, being glad, being happy, being patient. So try to hear patient not as that frustration, passive, not like that. It's a very proactive, courageous state of mind that is greeting the problem. Think of it this way. It just sounds like a funny word to us, patience, Kind of put up with something. That's not patience. That's not even remotely like patience. Put up with it with gritted teeth. That's wrong. It's like you're happy it's there. You're greeting it. It's grist for your mill. It's strengthening your practice. The second one is patience in the face of problems, obstacles, sickness and things. And that's pretty intense. And the third one is patience in the obstacles in your practice. And that means your own problems, your own delusions, your sickness, your dramas, your unhappiness, the obstacles coming, the arrogance coming like Roger, That's patience in the face of those things. Just keep moving. Just keep moving. Just keep moving. Welcoming the problems. Not being scared of the problems. Not being frightened. Which is what anger is. A lot of fear in it. Are we communicating? Now the fourth one is about effort. And this is a very curious one actually. We need to really look at this one carefully because it's not obvious. When we hear, it's called either joyful effort or it's called enthusiastic perseverance or enthusiasm. And it sort of sounds very peculiar in a way if you didn't understand what it is. But the only way to really understand it crystal clear is to understand the opposite, the obstacle, the opposite. And then it becomes super clear what enthusiasm is. And the opposite is called laziness. Will you listen? It's so embarrassing. We've all got these 100%. And this is the hardest of these 4. It's the most difficult. And the one they all the lamas say, without this, we will never succeed. And when we look at the laziness, you'll understand exactly. You'll understand it exactly. So if we use it in ordinary samsaric terms, strictly speaking, they're only talking about this in terms of dharma. But if we use it in ordinary life, we'll recognize it completely. So the first kind of laziness is obvious. You can't be bothered. Can't be bothered. That one. That's the gross, in-your-face, ordinary, huge, massive laziness of wanting to stay in your comfort zone. Talk about 8 worldly dharmas. We all understand this one. Can't be bothered. And you ask the question, what is it I can't be bothered doing? Guess what? The thing that takes too much effort. So meaning as soon as we have to push against the status quo, as soon as we have to push outside our comfort zone, it's too much effort, isn't it? And nobody likes to make effort. We can see this is the grossest one. This is the one why we have to sleep all the time, why we have to have a rest, why we have to have a break, why we have to have our food, why we have to have a holiday, why we have to have, take time out. Because we get it's too exhausting. So, of course, we're reasonable human beings. We've got to do what we have to do. But this is and of course, especially because we have such incredible lives. If you've got a life where there is no comfort zone, where you're living in a war zone, you're living, you have to work 60 hours a week just to get a bowl of rice. You're forced all the time beyond your comfort zone, aren't you? But we don't need to. We are so fortunate. But the tragedy is we use it up and waste it, the merit, So we don't make effort. And of course, because we assume when you first go to the gym, and using ordinary samsaric examples, you know perfectly well. This is the point. You've got to do a certain number of push-ups, let's say. Well, you don't do push-ups at the gym, but just pretend you do. And you start doing the push-ups, and then look what happens. As soon as it starts getting difficult, if you stop right there, and then you said to yourself, I did my push-ups today. Well, you didn't actually, did you? Because nothing in your body will change until it hurts, right? It's got to hurt, doesn't it? And that means that's what effort is. That moment when it hurts, what effort is, you go one step further. That's what making effort means. And then that's what will make changes, isn't it? That's what will make changes. That's how your body will start to change. Your muscle will start to get fit. If you want to go on a diet, you've got to make effort. You can't do it any other way. There's got to be effort. It's got to hurt. And what does hurt mean is attachment isn't getting what it wants. Because what runs our lives is this junky attachment to live in its comfort zone, which is the first level of the 8 worldly dharmas. Feeling good. Are you hearing me, people? Everyone here, we hear it. It's very painful to hear it. So the second kind of laziness, this is embarrassing. It's called, I'm too busy, I'll do it later. And we call it procrastination. So and this one, it's so wicked, this one. You listen to it. So what is the thing you're too busy to do that you'll do later? The thing that takes too much effort. But this is extra problem because you lie to yourself. It's this propaganda of the ego. And it happens so quickly, within a millisecond. You think of the job you're supposed to do, and then within a millionth of a second, you're already saying to yourself, no, I can't stand the thought of that, doing that job. But I'm too busy, I'll do it later. And you kind of make yourself feel better. And you won't do it later. And that's when this terrible conflict comes. When all our lives, we put off doing the things we want to do, right? And then all the guilt on top of this, and then suddenly we get to old age and we didn't achieve 90% of what we wanted to achieve in our life because we put it off. This is the suffering of the world, I promise you. This is the one. Because we are addicted to our comfort zone. As long as it feels good, we're happy to do it. No effort. In my life, in my job, because I work for my lamas, they're also my bosses, okay? So I work for them, okay? So they're my bosses. So all my jobs, the jobs I have in my daily life, they're so-called dharma jobs. So by hearing the teachings, we all know that if the object, the power of the object, so if the power of the object, in my case, it's the lama, the guru, the dharma centers. So I'm very fortunate that the power of the object of my practices makes me create merit easily. You understand what I'm saying? Aren't I lucky? But listen, there are some jobs I have on my computer, in my folders there, I see them right now, I don't like doing them. And I see it every day in my mind. Every day I see it in my mind. I should put time to do those jobs. And they're all there. They're like a burden on my back, you know. And then within a millisecond, I'm rushing to feeling all holy and good, and I rush off and do the other job, which is also holy, but which I prefer to do. Do you understand what I'm saying? We live our lives like this. We live our lives like this. And this is worse than the first one because we lie to ourselves. We call it being too busy. And we really think it's true. So the thing that's missing, all the lamas say, and it's such a sensible thing, we look at it in ordinary life, it makes sense, that the only reason you're going to do anything is if you know the benefit, if you got the benefit, you know the end result. You've got clear about the end result. So, you know, this was a bit cruel of me one time. A friend of mine who's busy with her life and her kids, and she lives 40 kilometres from the centre and all that kind of thing, you know, and always says, I must come to the teachings, but always says, oh, I'm far too busy. And we're discussing how our minds are. And then I said, well, if you had to go to the centre to pick up $500, would you go? Of course she said. She was embarrassed, but she said, of course I would. She'd put the kids in the back seat, she'd find someone to take care of the kids, and she'd be all perky and enthusiastic, and she would find the time to go to the centre for half an hour to get $500. Of course she would. Why? It's not being moralistic now, because we know the benefit of $500. Even if you're rich, you know the benefit of $500. You understand my point? Of course, so here, it is so much harder for us, because it seems so abstract to become a Buddha. I mean, when you hear all these lamas, like Lama Zopa just never stops day and night talking about compassion, I think, oh God, here he goes again. I don't mean it like that, but I don't mean it like that. But it seems so exhausting, that level of compassion all the time. I think I can't cope anymore. I just can't. Are you getting my point? He never stops for hours about the compassion of sentient beings. I mean, I know people are suffering. I've got a bit of compassion maybe, you know, but that level, it's like, oh, Lama Zopa, stop it. I can't bear it, you know. And so for him, he never sleeps a wink. For him, they say, Roger said for him, his other Roger, Australian monk, who's his attendant, for Rinpoche, sleep is a disgusting waste of time. Now, I mean, just to hear that is like a joke, right? It's like you can't believe he thinks it. But it's true for these holy beings. Geshe Lama Kontrog, whom Yangtze Rinpoche knows, his father was a friend of his, and they all knew each other at Sarah J. He lived in the mountains, naked, in a little hole in the wall with no front, no clothing, no sleep, and no food in 6 foot of snow in the winter. Okay, he's a yogi, so he can generate heat, but excuse me, the reason was because he had compassion. Because it's like disgusting to waste time, not to practice day and night, because it's like all their children. The world is all their children who are starving and sick, and if you don't go and work on becoming a Buddha, who's going to help them? That level of compassion is what they're talking about. Okay, one step at a time. But this one of, so for us, you know, we think, oh, I must become a Buddhist. Oh, then we say all these prayers, I'm going to become a Buddha to benefit sentient beings. Oh, yeah, we say every day, I'm going to become a Buddha to benefit sentient beings, you know. And then we think, well, can I try and get some samadhi? Oh, no, I can't do that. But we're just saying I'm going to become a Buddha. Well, be careful what you're going to say. Excuse me, you say it every day. Oh, yeah, for all sentient beings. So, okay, we're saying it. Aren't we lucky? We're putting the seed in at least. But we've got to somehow think about the benefits to ourselves of the goal we're trying to accomplish. We have to, because that's what will motivate us. Like the $500 instantly will motivate us, because we understand it. So this is why it takes so much effort, because we can't see the benefits. So then, of course, if we think the benefit will be, I will feel better soon, then we'll get all excited waiting to feel better, and then you end up feeling like Roger after a few years of retreat, feeling worse and going crazy. So, you know, we can't win. So we've got to really have a clear long-term view. And that's why we've got to be logical about it and think reasonably about it and understand that sowing the seeds, be happy you're sowing the seeds. And we just got to keep moving with kind of developing slowly this enthusiasm, because it's a long term. As His Holiness says, bodhisattvas think in terms of eons, you know. It's an enormously difficult one, incredibly difficult to think of the benefits to yourself of your practice. We know we want to be happier. We know we want to be less jealous and less depressed. We do know it, but then to think of doing my practice every day because I'll get less depressed, you can't see the relationship between it. Because why? Because of the inertia of the attachment to comfort. This is the one here. This is not attachment to reputation. This is not attachment to what people think. This is not attachment to hearing nice sounds. This is attachment to comfort. This is the word of the 8 Bodhidharmas. This is the one that prevents us from making effort, from stretching ourselves. It's a really tough one. And it's not the worst yet. The third one is even worse. Now, it doesn't even sound like laziness. But this third one goes, nah, I can't do that. Impossible, I can't achieve that. No, that's not possible, I can't do that. And I think to understand this in ordinary life, we see it in ordinary life. And a great example, okay, this is just ordinary life, but it's an analogy, because we're talking Dharma here, of course. But we see it so clearly. I remember years ago when I was living in the Bay Area, in San Francisco, and reading in the 90s, reading about some of these IT groups in the San Jose, around Cupertino. Maybe it was even the Google guys. Who knows? I don't remember who they were. But they were these young guys who had some tech company they'd started in their garage, like all the young guys, and they were getting ready. They'd got investment, and they were getting ready to do their initial public offering on the stock exchange, which meant investment of hundreds of, millions of dollars. That was their goal, okay? So they got their goal super clear, and that's the aim of these groups. You understand that? You're going to do your IPO. So, you listen, and that's right, three of them or something, and I remember reading, I forget the details exactly, that they worked to get ready for their IPO, they worked for something like 6 months, 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. Now, listen. For sure, when they woke up one morning, totally exhausted, absolutely for certain, they would rather have gone back to sleep if they'd followed their feelings, yeah? And all they had to do was remember their goal. And guess what? Out of bed. You went against your comfort zone. You went against the laziness to want to turn back to sleep, right? Obvious, because you have your goal. The second one, for sure, they would rather have gone to the football, sit back with their kid, with their girlfriend and eat popcorn and watch television. But all they had to do was remember their goal, and they didn't put it off. You understand? And the third one, for sure, when you've got this huge goal, like the dream of a tech company, don't tell me they didn't have agonies of doubt. Oh my God, can we really do this? Is it possible? Do you think we really can achieve this goal? And for sure, they would have said, yes, we can, and that caused them to never give up. Because never giving up, that's what enthusiastic perseverance is. And that is what causes you to achieve your goal. Are we communicating? Yes. This is what enthusiasm is. And of course, eventually, it's not joyful in the beginning, it's miserable enthusiasm, It's miserable effort, but eventually it becomes joyful because practice makes perfect. We've got to remember that. They have this acute way of putting it, framing this practice makes perfect. A nice way of framing it in Tibetan. They say, what is it? They say, with familiarity, there's nothing that doesn't get easier. There's nothing that doesn't get easier. So when we know that, that itself will encourage us to keep trying, keep making effort, because we know with practice makes perfect. When we know that, then we are prepared to go beyond our comfort zone. But of course, you've got to do it incrementally. You don't just go from sleeping 8 hours a night to sleeping no hours. You can't do that. But you do it incrementally, Like, for a while, for myself, for my practice, I used to get up for years, a whole period of my life. I got up at 4:30 every morning. I did 3 hours, 2 or 3 hours, 3 hours for a while. I had real enthusiasm. I was memorizing my prayers. I'd do my 200 prostrations. And I just did it. There was nothing would make me not do it. And then somehow something changed, and I don't know why, whatever reason, I thought I'm going to get up when I feel like it. Completely everything changed, and my practice went down the toilet, I promise. I did it every day, but last minute, in the car, with no enthusiasm. And it took me years, because I'd practiced these new habits. It took me years to get back to doing it properly, you know? Years, because I'd created these new habits. And it took me much more effort to climb back up again. Do you understand? I never broke it. I never break my I mean, I do break my samaya unconsciously, but I never not do my practice. That's one thing I say. I never don't do my practice. Even if it's lazily, even if it's watching television while I'm doing it, I would still do it. Even though bad, you understand? So I had the wish not to break. That I can say that with truth. But lazily. And I created some problems for myself, you know? So many problems, so many obstacles by doing that. And I've learned from it. It's okay. We've got to do what we've got to do, you know? You can't help it. But this enthusiasm one, for me, when you hear it in the context of laziness, is the opposite. It really rings true. Really rings true, you know? Because our lives are so fortunate, relatively speaking, that we can have such comfort. We can easily, I mean, look how easy it is for us to get what we want. It's like phenomenal how fortunate we are. So therefore it's so easy to be addicted to our comfort zone. You understand what I'm saying? So one step at a time, you know. Go against the comfort zone. We don't put it off, and we can do it. So incrementally, reasonably, go one step at a time, one step at a time. And then, you know, we don't have this burden of guilt about the things we keep putting off. And we also develop a very courageous mind about what we can achieve. Instead of keeping ourselves all small, no, that's not possible. We say it like it's a virtue, but it's the deepest of laziness because we don't make effort. You know, it seems like almost humility to say, oh no, I can't do that. So we have to prioritize. So we want to be clear of what our priority is, that's all. Clear about what our priority is. Clear about our priorities. I remember, reading, I told you this, heard about in London, some Australian nurse who worked with dying people. And she wrote a book. She'd interviewed dying people, and she wrote a book called The 5 Greatest Regrets of the Dying. And this is linked to what we're saying. There's variations to the approach to it. But she said the greatest regret was not doing what I really wanted to do, not following my heart. And I think one of the biggest reasons is because, they said, instead of that, doing what we thought other people expected of us. And this is that kind of laziness. Oh, no, I can't do that. Mummy wouldn't approve. I can't do that. Daddy won't approve. I can't do that. They won't approve. Oh, I can't do that. That's just not, the world wouldn't accept that. That's often that one, and that's the attachment to reputation that stops us from from aiming for the thing that other people mightn't approve of. So therefore holding back and not doing it, you know. That was the greatest regret, not walking up Mount Everest. The greatest regret, I find that mind-blowing, not doing what my heart really wanted and doing what I thought other people expected of me. It's not exactly this one, but it's like this one. It could be a lot to do with this one. But the one of not feeling it's possible. And there can be all sorts of reasons. And I mean, this one little example I used when I was at one centre somewhere years ago, and the guy who was the director was a lovely, dear man with a very big heart, but a really lousy manager, which often you find in the Dharma centres, you know, big hearts, but no understanding of money and very fearful about money and worried about how we get things and no, we haven't got anything and we can't do this and we can't do that. It's very interesting, you know, and I learned this a lot when I ran the prison project. We had to all learn to be really courageous because we didn't have any money and the need was so enormous, these prisoners. We had to learn, and it was really this, what I'm talking about here, really develop this attitude that the need was there. You couldn't say you can't do it. You couldn't say that, because if you didn't do it, who would? So we had to learn to develop the view, we will do it, but then we'll find the money. But the usual one we say is, oh no, we can't do it. Because why? Haven't got the money. So the one of saying we can't do it, which is the third one. So I remember this particular centre, very sweet people, and he asked me to come and have a bit of a meeting and just brainstorm among all the volunteers how they could grow the centre, you know. And so I'd learned from myself from doing the prison project, what I'd learned was you've got to aim for the goal you have the goal. This is normal life. We do this all the time. You have a goal, and then you find the method to get there. So what we tend to do is, you see the goal, you go, oh no, I can't do that. Too much. No, because all you can do is see the obstacles. You can't see the way to achieve that goal. So that's where we say, no, not possible, can't do it. So we stay quiet. We stay in our comfort zone. So this center, I said, okay, and I wrote down, this is what I'd learned, 2 headings, expenses and income. I said, let's play with some ideas and come up with a plan for the center for a year. So I put down, let's play some ideas. So I said, I looked at the director and I pointed to his altar because he didn't have a statue. And I said, would you like a beautiful new statue for your altar? And he said, oh, no, Robina, I can't have that. I haven't got any money. No, we can't do that. And I said, but would you like a new statue? No, Robina, you didn't hear me. We haven't got the money. We can't. No. And I had to say several times, but I didn't ask you that. I said, would you like a new statue? And he looked at me. And he heard it, and he was almost too scared to even say, yes, I want a new statue. Are you hearing my point here? This is the third kind of laziness. What he was saying was, nah, not possible, can't do that, nah, impossible, impossible. This is the worst one. And then he heard it, and he was even too scared. I said, say it. Would you like a new statue? And he finally kind of, yes. Ooh. So he wrote down $1,000 and nearly fainted, maybe $5,000, I forget, He was too shocking for his mind, And then I said, this is what I learned from doing the prison project. I said, listen, I don't know what his name was. I forget his name. I said, sweetheart, listen, we're only doing thinking here. Thinking doesn't cost a penny. No one's asking you to spend anything yet. So this is so clear, It doesn't cost a penny to say what you want. And this is the one about not doing what you want because you're even too scared to think what you want because you're thinking, I can't do it. Are you communicating? Yes. So then everyone started getting really excited, Then they got kind of permission now. So we ended up with a really beautiful 12-month plan. Exactly what they thought they could do. Not what they could do, what they'd like. 4 teachers a year, all the airfares, how much, and the offerings, and this. And then we started a bookstore and all the books and how much it will cost. And they really were getting excited. They were given permission, to have nice thoughts about what they'd like. So we had this beautiful plan for the year and however much the money was. I said, now let's see how we can accomplish it. So we started working out all the reasonable methods, nothing unusual, proper methods of how to bring in the money. We did all our numbers, the bookstore, the this, the that, the number of members, and the donations, the average of this and the something that. Everything was reasonable, and we ended up with a surplus. Did you hear me? Yes. God, you funny Puerto Ricans. So, I don't know whether they did it, but it's not that complicated. You have a plan. You've got to have enough courage to say what you want. Then you can see the methods to get there. But you see, in our ordinary life, when we have to go to, somewhere, you do this. We work out the goal, we get the money, we buy the ticket, and we go there. It's hardly rocket science. So we've got to say the things we want to achieve. But you've got to have that goal. And that's why with our practice, if we never get past saying, oh, yeah, come to teachings once a week and learn the Lam Rim, but as for studying the meaning of it, oh, no, that's too much effort. I couldn't do that. Or go and do your retreat, no, that's too much effort. Come on, people. Got to be a bit brave, We can do it. If we can't do it, I accept. Don't try. It's not logical to say we can't do it. I can't do like Lama Zopa does yet. But that doesn't mean I don't try. So every time I wake up in the morning, and believe me, since I don't get up at 4:30 anymore, now I get up at 6 o'clock if I'm lucky, but it's an effort now, whereas I'd leap out of my bed at 4:30. I didn't even have an alarm clock. I never used an alarm clock in my life since I was an old hippie. I wanted to be up at 3.5 minutes past 3. I'd wake up all perky, Hop out of bed. I never doubted for a second when I was into that level of my practice. These days, I've got to make myself get up. I've got to make effort, I've got to make effort to do my practice. I've got to make effort. But I just plod along. I just do it. And you always feel glad when you do. So it's, blah, blah, blah. and stay perky. You know the word perky? Okay, I figure that's my policy. Even if you're drowning, you might as well stay perky. Okay, any questions, people? Perky, all like me, you know, all ridiculous and optimistic and shouting and yelling and optimistic. Perky, I don't know, it's maybe an Australian word, who knows? It's funny Australian language, I don't know. So, yeah, are there any questions? Huh? Yeah, like all optimistic, happy, kind of, you know, like that kind of thing. So do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? We've only got half an hour. You won't, I'm leaving today, aren't I? I'm going tomorrow morning. I'll be on the aeroplane tomorrow morning. So before I leave, any questions for me? Nothing? Okay. What else? Nothing? What, darling? No, I know that's concentration, and that's single point of concentration and emptiness. All right, you want to go there? Okay. All right then, just do that. So the next two are in your meditation. These two, you're bopping around in relation to sentient beings, life after life, practicing these four, perfecting these four. And in your meditation, you're perfecting the last two. So the first one is called, they're both called in terms of their result. And they're the two kinds of meditation, basically. There's millions of techniques, but essentially two methods of meditation, two modes of meditation, two ways of using your mind in meditation, okay? So these are both actually Hinayana practices in their nature. In fact, concentration, the first of the two, calm abiding, it's called, as its result, calm abiding. It's actually a Hindu technique the Buddha took, you know, and used. And then it's taught in the second scope of the you know, it's not taught there, but it's taught, if you're just a Hinayana practitioner, a Theravadan practitioner, you would develop your single point of concentration, you would then realize emptiness, because emptiness itself is a Hinayana teaching, okay. But in the Mahayana, it's taught in the context of the perfections of the Bodhisattva, because it's so much, as we discussed last week, it's taught in the context of bodhicitta, which gives it this extra oomph. So it's a Mahayana teaching, the perfection of wisdom, the perfection teachings, the Mahayana teachings on wisdom, the perfection of wisdom. So the first meditation, the fifth of the six, this first kind of meditation we talked about, is called, often known as single-pointed concentration. The result is called calm abiding. Calm abiding. Sometimes in the under Pabonka Rinpoche, the translator Michael Richards, in the English, he refers to it as mental quiescence, mental quiet. So whatever term, I don't know, whatever it is in Tibetan. What is it called in Tibetan? Laktong or something. Was that the other one? That's the other one. Whatever. Shamatha, yeah, that's right. That's the Sanskrit, isn't it? So Shine in Tibetan, that's right. So Shine, that's right. Calm abiding. So the second one generally is called vipassana, which is insight. But it's called special insight because the special refers to insight into emptiness. Insight in general, there's insight into karma, insight into impermanence, insight into all the stages of the path. But here it's called special insight because it's insight into emptiness. And so it's the union of these two, as they say, the union of calm abiding and special insight. The bringing of these two together. And then the perfecting of the realization of emptiness. And this combined with the first four is the six perfections of the Bodhisattva, and that is Buddhahood. The perfection of these is all Buddhahood. So, okay. So the first kind of meditation, like we've talked, it's really good, again, to be very clear about the meaning of this word meditate. We have so many ideas in our minds, and of course in the world there are many different interpretations of this word, but the word in Tibetan is really clear, okay? It's the verb to familiarize, the word gom. It means the verb to familiarize. And that's even as a simpler word is to learn, actually. So the meaning of it is that, the meaning. So the meaning of meditation here, or familiarize, so you ask the question, well, what am I familiarizing with what? Well, obviously, what does meditation is the mind. So therefore the question has to be, what do I have to familiarize my mind with? Well, two things. That which is true, reality, as they put it in Buddhism, reality, how things exist, that which is true, that which is real, that which exists. There's different ways of saying the same thing. One has to familiarize one's mind with that which is true, and one has to familiarize one's mind with that which is virtuous, that which is positive. The implication being that right now our minds are thoroughly familiar with that which is not true and that which is non-virtuous. And that's what being in samsara means. This is one way, essentially, of saying what you're doing as a Buddhist. That's the point of this term, meditation. So then you have the term, they use the word, they use it like this in Tibetan. There's the meditation, there's the familiarization in that's achieved from listening. The familiarization, the insights that I'm losing my words here, got from listening, from thinking about it, and then from getting insight directly in meditation at a subtler level. So the stages of development of our mind in this process of familiarization, we need to listen to become familiar with the thoughts. We need to think it through, and then this process of listening, thinking it through, then slowly, that's what brings direct insight at a subtler level in our mind in meditation. It's this logical progression. And as I've been pointing out before, this process is what we call learning. That word is a brilliant word in our culture. That word, we really understand it. Go and learn something. It means you listen to it, you think about it, until eventually you get the experience of it. Whether it's cooking, the violin, computers, driving, or becoming a Buddha. It's exactly the same process. Big surprise to us. Who would have thought? Because we mystify these words. That's our problem, you know. We have such cliched views of meditation that it's like shocking. That's why we always just think we can't do it. And why we don't do this process properly is because we're lazy. Can't be bothered, too much effort, can't do it. But we can. Buddha was a regular guy like you and me. Probably cheated on his wife like everybody else. But he became a Buddha. If he can do it, we can do it. This is so logical. You can't argue with it, you know. One step at a time. So, okay, the first kind of meditation is getting this single-pointed concentration, which is not a level of mind that we even posit as existing in our culture. There's no such thing. It's necessarily a subtler level of mind. Necessarily. Not the subtlest. That only really can be done in Tantra. The methods are even more powerful in Tantra. This is in the Sutra teachings. So here it's in the Mahayana. But concentration is this, you know, it's like I said, like I think I just talked about it. Actually, let's just, for the sake of it, did I do this already? Did I read out the 9 stages one time? I didn't, did I? No, okay. Okay, let's do that. No. No, okay, let's read it out, because it's really good to sow the seeds in our mind to hear. Let's do from Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. We'll read out the 9 stages as Babonka talks about it. It's really good for our minds to sow the seed in the mind to get the realization of single-pointed concentration. Let me find it. Where is it? Don't remember. How to train. There we go. There it is. Oh, that can't be the right one. No, that's wrong. That's silly. That's the. That's in the contents. Here it is. Okay. How to train in the very essence of concentration. Well, first of all, you've got to be qualified to even get it. You know, the ideal scenario would be to have completely given up all attachment to food, clothing, people, things, reputation, money, all this business, which is already pretty high. To completely just, relax in terms of the world's demands, be very content mind, harness the crazy energy of this deluded mind of ours. Already to be qualified to really get it. When you're really qualified, Babonka Rinpoche says you can get it in 6 months. So it shows to even get to that point, you've got to have almost realizations. Another way of presenting this is, there's one packaging of teachings that's called the three higher trainings. The third one is the realization of wisdom, of emptiness. To get that, you've got to have the second, which is single point of concentration, calm abiding. But to get that, you've got to have the first, which is the practice of morality, which is the harnessing of our body, speech, and mind, which is all the first stages of practice. Abiding by the laws of karma, doing purification, giving up attachment, giving up the neuroses. So already highly developed to be ready to go to the mountains to get single point of concentration. You've got to have a conducive place, and they all say the very best place to meditate is where it's been blessed by the presence of other meditators. That would be the ideal, It needs to be quiet. You need to have good friends who can take care of you. I mean, we're all not like Geshe Lama Kontrok who can live on the air, He was able to eat the air, basically. So, anyway, here we go. Let's read the 9 points so we put the imprints into our mind. You've got to have few wants, you've got to be content, have pure morality, abandon all the demands of society, be happy with any food that you're given. It doesn't matter what, eat anything. So here we go, the 9 stages. Well, a little bit more about it first. Okay, just generally speaking, we can see, can't we, the two main obstacles to the achievement of single point of concentration are the tendencies of our mind, which we're totally familiar with, to either be completely overexcited, never stopping, blah, 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 which we're so familiar with, isn't it? Or for the mind to be dull. So you get this stream of dullness, and that's sleep, isn't it? You sit down, and within it you're asleep, That's one extreme. The other extreme is your mind never stops. So it's almost like we've got these two options and we don't know any other way. We're constantly struggling. What you're doing in this single point of concentration, almost you could say, and when you hear what he's saying, you'll see it. What you're doing is you're bringing the mind from the excitement and you're bringing the mind away from the dullness to almost find this invisible place. And for us, it is invisible. In between there somewhere where you've got, and this is my way of putting it, okay? Because the qualities you need when you've got concentration are the mind has to be absolutely still. Now you look, when our mind is still, basically that's sleep, isn't it? You understand? Or when you're dull. Many people can sit very easily and quite comfortably, and they can feel very nice. And people mistake that for concentration. But that's called dullness, and it's just ignorance. It's not meditation at all. That's actually that's relaxation. So don't mix relaxation with concentration. They're completely different techniques. We really do need relaxation. It's wonderful but don't sit up there looking holy. Please lie down if you're going to relax. It's fine to relax. We need to relax. It's a really good thing to do. But concentration demands incredible alertness, incredible sharpness, because the mind so easily can sink into the dull. That's not concentration. That is not meditation. It's really important to know that. So our mind, like I'm saying, will either go dull or we go berserk, So it's almost as if, you think about it, when the mind is really busy, it's very sharp as well. There's something very sharp about it. You got my point here? Kind of very clear and bright and sharp. Well, concentration, it seems, has to have incredible sharpness, but without the busy. And it's got to have the absolute stillness, but without the dullness. It's just my way of putting it. Can you kind of see what I'm saying? And that's an invisible place for us. We don't have that. We either have dull or we have busy. And this is what this concentration is all about, is bringing the mind between these two. And it's incredibly difficult. And you've got to be so qualified to even get to the point. Of course, we've got to start somewhere. And the main obstacle for us is our immorality, is our lack of ethics, is our confusion, our busyness, our berserkness, our delusions, our worries, our fears, our guilt, our attachment, our need for food every 5 minutes, I mean, how can we get concentration? Got to have 4 meals a day, for God's sake, in between the snacks. You understand? I mean, you're sitting there for 5 minutes, I'm thinking in my morning, and I'm already thinking about my coffee, How can I ever get concentration? Forget it. You understand? Okay. So let's go through the 9 steps just for auspiciousness. Here we go. All the pitfalls. Where is it? Here we go. The first one's called fixing the mind. Fixing, on the thing. So this is achieved by the power of studying the instructions on visualization. The object of meditation here that's typical in this tradition, the Vajrayana tradition, is the visualization of the Buddha, not the breath. And anyway, eventually you need an internal object. An external object is the breath. It's external, it's physical. Because at some point you go beyond the breath. When you've got single point of concentration, you are not breathing, believe me. So you can't keep breathing as your focus. That's an external object. It's very gross. Start with it, it's okay. But eventually you need an internal object. That means something in the mind itself. So the classic one in Vajrayana is the deity. And the point about this is this also. This is something important for our practice. There are certain practices that are said to be far more powerful for us in terms of purification and merit. And one of those is the practices that are related to the Buddha. When we really understand this, and because we are not great meditators, we're only going to do a little bit of practice, then we'll be very skillful in choosing the practices we do spend time on. And so if you're going to do some concentration, concentrate on the Buddha. The infinite virtue of this, the purification to your mind is inconceivable. So much more powerful. Of course, do other things first. You want to do the sensations of your body or your breath, start with that. But eventually graduate to thinking, visualizing the Buddha. Incredible power, just even saying the word Buddha. So much more power, so much more purification. The power of the object. In relation to generosity, you give $1 to a Dharma center. Infinite more merit for you than giving $1 million to dog homes, because of the power of the object. Because what the center does is help people's minds and leads people to enlightenment. So you be skillful in choosing what you can do. We're limited time, limited money, so we be skillful in choosing the most potent objects of our own virtue. It just makes sense, So this is achieved by the power of studying the instruction on visualization with your guru. However, you are only evoking the visualization at this stage. It doesn't stay, and you can't make it persist for any length of time. At this point, through the power of the mind's mental processes of conceptual and analytical thinking, you can detect that you are under the power of a lack of focus or excitement. So you feel that your conceptual thoughts have increased. It's a sign of success, okay? You think you're getting worse. But in fact, these thoughts have not increased. You have only had the insight of gaining some acquaintance with your conceptual thoughts, which is, of course, what we have to do. The second one is called fixation with some continuity. So after meditating in this way, you are able to evoke the image and can even make it persist a while. You can meditate for about the time it takes to say a mala of Om Mani Padme Hum without being distracted. And most of us will never even get to that stage, okay? Not being depressed or anything, but unless we make effort. Unless you don't say, I can't be bothered. Unless you don't say, I'll do it later. Unless you don't say, I can't do it. You will if you don't say those 3 things. This gives you some insight. Okay, at this point, your conceptual thoughts are sometimes peaceful and sometimes they develop. This gives you insight into what it's like to be cured of conceptual thinking. So clearly this is a really advanced stage, so-called second stage, This state is achieved through the power of contemplation. Both these first two mental states have a great deal of dullness and excitement, and the image does not remain for long. As at this time you are using the first of the four mental processes, forced fixation, but your distraction lasts longer than the image persists. Patchy fixation is the third one. This state's like a garment with patches on the material, okay. But you are immediately, though the image basically persists, the mind becomes distracted from the visualization. But you are immediately aware of this and you patch up your fixation on the meditation object. The duration of your distraction is shorter than in the previous two states. At this stage, you are developing a more powerful memory or mindfulness. The actual meaning of the actual word mindfulness, one of the mental factors, is actually memory. It's short-term memory, basically. The next one's called good fixation, the fourth. You have developed powerful mindfulness or memory, and you can fix your mind on the meditation object. From now on, it is impossible for you to lose the meditation object. And so this state is far more forceful than the previous three. Just the same, while you are not losing the meditation object, you fall prey to the strongest forms of dullness and excitement, and you must apply antidotes to these too. Both the third and the fourth mental states are achieved through the power of mindfulness, memory. But from now on, memory is like a man at the height of his powers. Okay, whatever. So then the next one's called becoming disciplined, the fifth one. In the fourth state, the mind is overly knotted up inside. Now at the fifth, the greatest danger is from subtle dullness. Here you develop powerful vigilance or alertness, it's called. These are different mental states, very specific mental states. Alertness stands on guard. You think this alertness is a quality of single-pointed concentration, and it buoys up your mind. The difference between the fourth and the fifth states is that only the former has coarse dullness and excitement. So what I want to say here is, and it's getting late, I'm sorry, is this is just the fifth stage, okay? And now, just to give you some context, our friend Venerable Rene, a Swiss monk, who's a serious meditator, like Venerable Roger, a professional meditator for 35 years, done years and years of retreats. I interviewed him in Mandala magazine back in the 90s about his 18-month retreat, 18 months, at Ling in Spain, where Lama Yeshe's reincarnation was born. Okay, so the point is this. He said he just touched upon the fifth of the 9 stages. So what we're just talking about here, which sounds like simple words, he took 18 months to just get to touch upon the beginning of the fifth stage. So we're talking way to go here. You understand what I'm saying? But the other fascinating point is this. You listen to this. He told me, he said in his meditation, the point you see the Buddha's making about our mind, this is the point that Buddha's making, that the nature of a mind, when it even temporarily is unencumbered by all the neuroses in the head that rave on all day like maniacs, even temporarily, not having those crazy thoughts, the mind is naturally blissful. So he said, Rene said, that there's no question that in this meditation, and he only got just to the fifth of the 9 stages, that when his mind was doing this meditation, he said the joy or the bliss that he experienced in his own mind, in his meditation, was infinitely superior to any joy he had ever experienced through his senses. So this is the point that Buddha's making. When we think of bliss, when we think of happiness, when we think of joy, when we think of pleasure, we think of an object that triggers it, don't we? The person, especially the body. That's usually the one. You don't have, fancy such bliss with eating a cake. Usually a body, So it's inconceivable to us to think of any kind of pleasure that doesn't come from having another contact with an object. And that's how deluded we are, Buddha says. That's how suffering we are. That we have no ability to access our own capacity, natural capacity for bliss and joy, which is the character of our own mind. It is the characteristic of our own mind. It's a natural quality of our own mind. But we don't know how to access it, except through getting an object. and stuffing it in one of the holes. Basically. Am I not right? Okay? So here's Rene up in the mountains, all on his own, a little monk, experiencing bliss. And then we go, oh, I don't want that kind of bliss. I want bliss with somebody, please. It sounds such boring kind of bliss, you know. But this is an interesting point. Because 5 to 9, is it time to stop? Do you want me to finish the 9 stages? Or are you going to go home? Huh? Nearly finished. Just read for the sake of it. And then we haven't got to wisdom yet. Maybe I have to come back tomorrow morning before I go to the airport. Or we can meet at the airport. We can finish wisdom tomorrow morning. Okay, let's just finish the 9 stages for the sake of auspiciousness. The 6th is becoming disciplined. In the 4th, the mind is overly knotted up inside. Now at the 5th, the greatest danger is from subtle dullness. Here you develop oh no, I said that one. That's the 5th. The 6th is becoming peaceful. Oh, thank God. So in the 5th, the mind has been uplifted rather too much. And under these circumstances, the greatest danger now is from subtle excitement. So when subtle excitement arises, you develop a more powerful form of alertness in order to detect it. And you see that even this subtle excitement is a fault and that you need to prevent it. The difference between this state and the 5th is that subtle dullness is not the main danger here. Both the 5th and the 6th are achieved through the power of vigilance, and at this point, the power of vigilance has been perfected. The 7th is becoming very pacified. Nearly finished. In the 7th state, it is very difficult to develop dullness or excitement because the power of your vigilance and memory have been perfected. Vigilance or alertness, memory or mindfulness. You develop the power of perseverance at this point. Perseverance, joyful effort. For you wish to abandon dullness and excitement as much as possible because you have looked into the damage that they can cause. The difference between the 6th and the 7th states is this. In the 6th, you must be very wary of the danger of falling prey to subtle dullness and excitement. This is not the case with the 7th. At this stage, there is no danger from subtle dullness or excitement. All the same, you must make an effort in the techniques to abandon both of them. In the 5th and 6th, there was concern about the harm excitement could do to you. Now at the 7th, you persevere and are able to put a stop to excitement or dullness whenever they occur. They cannot then interrupt you for long. The 5 mental states, starting with number 3 and going up to 7, are single-pointed concentration for the most part, interrupted by excitement and dullness. At these stages, the mental process is that of interrupted fixation. The 7th, yeah. At the beginning, this is called becoming single-pointed. At the beginning, you apply the antidote of mindfulness or memory, and though this involves a slight effort, you are then able to pursue the whole length of the meditation session without the subtlest excitement or dullness. Here, okay. So this is how the power of your excitement and dullness decline. By the 8th state, you do not have to put effort into the application of vigilance or alertness. After the slight initial effort during the 8th mental state, the whole session is not interrupted by dullness, excitement, and so on. Thus, the mental process at this stage is that of uninterrupted fixation. The 7th and 8th are achieved through the power of perseverance. Perseverance, never giving up. Perseverance is never giving up, okay? Never giving up. One time His Holiness was asked in Los Angeles the quickest way to get enlightened, and he cried. He said, I don't want to know about quick. And he mentioned Milarepa, up in the mountains, never giving up, sitting naked with calluses on his ass, getting realizations, never giving up. Now, the 8th one, the fixation is effortless. You spontaneously achieve this effortlessness by repeated cultivation of familiarity with the 8th state. You need not exert the slightest effort to slip into single point of concentration, just as a person who is good at, okay, that's it. So, it's hard, when you hear that at the 5th stage he had bliss, then you hear these words, who would have thought? There's no word of bliss in there, is there, you know? So it seems like so hard to have enthusiasm for this. But they all say, until we get single point of concentration, we can't get very far, you know. Until we have clairvoyance, we can't get very far to help sentient beings. So all we can do is hear these things, look at the examples, think about it, and have a bit of courage. And push a little bit harder, just a little bit harder every day. That's what effort means, you know. We all know this when it comes to learning anything. And we wonder if we've been practicing for 30 years, we don't feel we've made any progress. It's probably because we're not making any effort. We're just plodding along. But still, nevertheless, rejoice that you're plodding along, okay? Because you're putting in good seeds and you're keeping your vows. And see, there's another side to put it as well. The Lamas say if you keep your vows and your pure samaya purely and don't do much else, you'll get enlightened in a few lives. So there's different ways of putting it, okay? So even though you may be lazy, even when you're asleep, if you've got pure vows, you're creating merit, even as you're asleep. So be happy about that you're keeping effort to practice morality. So that's even good too. I think we better finish. Forget emptiness until next time. All right? Thank you. Yes, darling. That's liberation in the palm of your hand. Pabonka Rinpoche. Huh? Huh? Liberation. I read it from Liberation in the palm of your hand. Yeah. So, okay, we're done? We do our prayers? Okay, let's go. What happened? Oh, go on then.
Dearest Venerable Robina, we want to express infinite gratitude for the precious teachings which you have offered us during these past days. With your very particular and dynamic way of teaching the Dharma, you have contributed immensely to the enrichment of our study programs and, above all, to our personal understanding of the Buddha Dharma. These teachings can definitely bring us to our liberation from suffering and to help others to achieve their own liberation as well. We know that we continually revert back to our defilements again and again. For that reason, we know that we must continue to work hard in order to transform our minds. But we also recognize and rejoice in the immense potential of our mind and in the great opportunity to this human rebirth offers us in order to realize this transformation. We make a firm commitment to concentrate all our efforts to succeed at it. We wish you a long and healthy life so that you can continue to bring the Dharma to so many beings around so many countries around the planet. We ask that you please return to Ganden Shedrub Ling next year. It will be an honor and a blessing that you continue to offer us teachings which are filled with so much wisdom and compassion. When you return, we could possibly plan a fundraising event with our your participation.
We have a cocktail party auction.
We dedicate.
Well, I'd love to do that. We should do that. I'm happy. We'll do that.
We dedicate all the merit generated during all these days of teaching so that many, many beings may also have the opportunity of receiving and practicing the precious Dharma that may lead them to enlightenment.
Good.
From the bottom of our hearts, many, many thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, darling. Thank you. And thank you to all of you people. You're such a good center. I think you're just so amazing. I really do rejoice in what you're doing here. All of you together. So it's incredible. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to my kind friends putting up with me every day in their house. And I turned one of their seats pink for my robes. They've got this white leather seat in the kitchen, and they're all white, except for the one I sit my bottom on is pink. They'll always remember me from their pink seat. Okay, no, apart from that. For looking after me, all of you. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. And I will come back next year, I promise.